Hello, I'm Rachel Moeller, solo designer and dev on Serpent. Serpent was made in Unreal Engine 4 and Maya in 2018 and 2019. The gray box phase included other levels that were eventually cut when I created a modular kit for this level. Serpent's core experience goal was mystery. I wanted the environment and gameplay to escalate the player's questions about what happened to the cult that lived here. To do this, I had both the environment and archery puzzles gradually teach the player something new about the environment, while also leveraging what the player has already learned. The castle slopes upward as the player progresses into the more secluded personal chambers. The higher sections of the castle are also more destroyed. This rise corresponds to a rise in the story stakes as the player discovers through notes that the castle staff have been sacrificed to the cult's god. The level plummets downwards at the end, mirroring the emotional discovery that a character the player has been following was eaten by the queen. There are 3 major archery puzzles in the game, which the player must complete in the same order every time. I ensured this critical path by having gates to new areas open when the player completes each puzzle. However, each space before the gate, and later the entire level, is a loop that begins with a forked path. The player can choose either direction, but both will lead to the gate the player needs to open. Each path has notes with story information that can be read in any order, which helps to break up the linearity of the puzzle progression. Each archery puzzle follows the same basic format, but builds on the player's understanding of the mechanic. The player needs to shoot an arrow through fire and onto the round wall switches near the gates. I used bright orange outlines and a bowl of oil near each switch to show the fire requirement. The first puzzle has the player simply shoot through fire and into a switch. The second requires the player to shoot the arrow at a secondary location before they can line up a shot with the switch. And the final puzzle requires lighting a source fire with this technique and multiple shots at different angles. Not only does this teach the player new applications of the mechanic, but the gradual rise in difficulty corresponds with the rising tension in the story as the player gets further into the castle and sees stranger environmental stories and notes. When designing the fire's behavior, I had to consider the game's level of simulation detail and the environment. In the end, I opted not to have the fire interact with all flammable materials, and instead used orange as an affordance color to indicate to the player what objects fire can interact with, such as torches, candles, fireplaces, switches, and also where fire can be placed. While designing Serpent, I explored techniques for threading a mystery story in a 3D level using gameplay and environment. I wanted players to feel compelled to explore the space and story while encountering escalating challenges and tension.